Right, time to do this.
Is the music playing?
Right, time to do this.
It's 7 p.m. and it's Tuesday night. I got my laptop on and I feel alright. I got a few joints to roll and my munch is made. I got my headphones on and I'm closing the door, don't disturb me. It's time to stand up tall and say some things about the shitty world that we're living in. With the boys at Raconteurs News. I say Raconteurs, Raconteurs, say Raconteurs, Raconteurs. I said Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Raconteurs News, Raconteurs News. Oh yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Raconteurs News this Tuesday, the 2nd of January. It's the 2nd of January 2018. I hope everybody enjoyed their winter break and a very, very happy new year to everybody who's listening and everybody who listens in the future. 2018, let's hope, is going to be a little bit less hectic than 2017, particularly that on a personal note. I'd much prefer it to be a lot less hectic. So looking forward to 2018, and I'm looking forward to tonight as well because we've got a fabulous guest with us, but also I'd like to welcome back from his semi-retirement, joining me tonight, my co-host Andy Young. Andy, how are you doing, mate?
Hey, mate. Yeah, I've been enjoying just putting my feet up and taking it easy for a bit. Enjoyed the festivities. Well, don't really do the festivities much, but made a bit of a thing of it for a grandson. And thoroughly enjoyed seeing him, all those bits and bobs that you get on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's completely different when you've got kids. I mean, my daughter's 20 and 21 this year, so but I know I missed a few shows previous to Christmas, but everything's back on track. So everything's back on track. I seem to be coping a lot better with and my daughter's been to see me a few times, so we're reconciled. And so that's one good thing about Christmas this year. I did Christmas as Christmas rather than the 3 months beforehand. I went and got my shopping, started my shopping on the 23rd, I finished it on the 24th, 25th. New Year, I don't even bother doing that because you either go somewhere that's empty. Cause obviously I worked 25 years as a DJ, so never had a New Year's Eve off and never knew what it was like to sit in the house on New Year's Eve. So that's what we did. Me and the missus, we sat, just watched a bit of telly. And then at 11:45, I put the chip pan on and made us spam, egg and chips and beans for us to bring in the New Year. So that was my New Year's celebrations. That was and I think that was just about enough. But the chaos is over. Oh God, the charade that it is as well. That's all over. It rankles with me. I just don't like it. So, but happy New Year to everybody. It means
never let it be said that you don't know how to show a girl a good time, eh, Jace?
Yeah, spam, egg and chips. New Year's Eve, 11:45. Brilliant. Anyway, let's get on and introduce our guest for this evening. He's back on Raconteurs News. He's been on before. I think last time you came, we had Dr. Judy Wood on as well, didn't we? We tried to as well. So welcome back to Raconteurs News. Andrew Johnson, how are you doing? How was your Christmas?
Fine, thanks very much. Thanks for asking me back on. Yes, fine, really, overall. And, I didn't have spam, egg and chips, but, I was here. I didn't go out anywhere, so, one for the New Year's, really.
So you didn't have the luxury of spam, egg and chips. You see, my problem is you go somewhere and it's either empty or it's so full, you've got about as much chance of getting a seat as a deaf kid in a game of musical chairs.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely mental. So we're just stopping in's the best, I think. And the last few years I was working, New Year's Eve were rubbish anyway. I remember one night, I think it might have been 2008, 9, something like that, but I was working in Wakefield and I was home. And I watched the bells toll at home from Wakefield back to Rotherham. We just packed it in because there were nobody in. But anyway, let's get on with tonight's show. We've had a bit of a scare at the beginning where we thought we couldn't get hold of you. We thought it was going to have to be just me and Andy chatting away for an hour or two. So we've not really had a brief, talk about what we're going to be talking about. But first of all, I know Andy and I, and this is why I asked Andy on, because we were just wondering, what was your take on the disclosure that has allegedly taken place in the last month or so? Yeah, disclosure. Yeah, this.
Right. Yeah. Well, this people have not. I don't know how many people have followed this. Obviously, it's got quite a lot of attention on the internet, and it's mainly through this Tom DeLonge thing. And Tom DeLonge, this former US rock star who used to front up this sort of punk type new age US band. I mean, I've never heard of them, so I don't think they got any traction in the UK. Called Blink 182.
Oh yeah.
So he was either the lead guitarist or the lead singer, or maybe he was the bass guitarist and the lead singer. I can't remember. But he was a front man for that pop group in the sort of through the 90s, I think, primarily. And he claims to have been interested in UFOs, for years and years. And then I think it was about 3 years ago, he came out and he said that he'd been contacted by inside US military or intelligence service sources, and they said to him, "Oh, how do you know all this stuff about UFOs?" And he said, "Well, I've just been reading stuff and talking to people." And then he claims to have been involved in these kind of cloak and dagger meetings, in Washington DC and various other places around the US. And then he came out with this book called Secret Machines, which I think is some type of novel based on what he'd found out or been told by these, inside sources. And that he got promotion for that on the Coast to Coast, the big US talk show in various other places. And that was a couple of years ago. And I'd listened to this guy, and I'd not really paid that much attention, not because I'd, followed the Disclosure Project for a few years, and realised that that had a certain agenda behind it. The Disclosure Project, the one that was sort of developed by Stephen Greer primarily, although other people were involved. That I realised that was kind of that had a certain purpose. It wasn't just a sort of free disclosure that was just spontaneous, and da-da-da. It was managed. And so when this Tom DeLonge thing came out, I was much more sceptical of what was going on. And in fact, what he did, I think it was October last year, October 2017, he had this live webcast event where he said that he was now bringing out stuff through these whistleblowers, and these whistleblowers were, there's a guy from Lockheed Skunk Works, which is the secret sort of defence contractor, to give it a sort of simplistic description. He was called Steve Justice, I think. There was this other guy who was a CIA guy called Chris Mellon. He was involved. This other guy called Leo Spitz, something, I can't remember his name. He allegedly was Intel, but they didn't name the agency that he worked for, I don't think, and I'm pretty sure they haven't still named the agency. I think he's therefore either NSA or possibly NRO, which is the National Reconnaissance Office. So anyway, they had this live stream event with these guys saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to do all this stuff, and we're going to do it under the umbrella of the To the Stars Incorporated," which was this public company that Tom DeLonge had set up and he was going to basically develop movie scripts, and he was going to develop various inventions based on, this secret technology that the military had. And he was going to be fed those secrets, develop stuff, and bring it out to the public. I mean, it's, I'm paraphrasing all of this, so it's best if you're interested, go and watch the event. You'll find it on YouTube. And it all sounds, nice and interesting and wonderful. But actually, when you start to look at it, you can basically see it's just a CIA-run psychological operation. And they've even made it more open than the Disclosure Project, in terms of the running of it is being done by the CIA. One of the people on the stage that was at this live stream event and in the follow-up sort of press releases and so forth was Hal Puthoff. Hal Puthoff. Now, you need to go and check out this Hal Puthoff guy. He's a key guy. He, knows all the stuff about the paranormal, telekinesis, free energy technology, all these secret inventions. I'm pretty sure he's like one of the linchpin people in the whole sort of black world, basically. He is one of the key people that's like an interface, a kind of public outreach from the black world into the white world. And he was openly involved in this disclosure. So when you see him there, this isn't going to be it's going to be a managed disclosure. They're going to tell you what they want to tell you. They're going to package it in the way they want to package it. They might let out a little bit of secret stuff or formerly secret stuff. I mean, the big thing that's gone around the press has been this story about the USS Nimitz, which there was a UFO incident on that, I think, I can't even remember when it was because I took so little interest in this, to be quite honest. They're now publicising this USS Nimitz event where, they sighted a craft and tracked it on radar or something, and maybe they sent up a plane to, target a missile on it or something. I really don't know, what the actual whole story is. I haven't taken an interest. And when they did this live stream in October, the guy even said, Chris Mellon said, "Oh, go and look it up on the web." In other words, it was already out on the web. It wasn't a new story. You just said, "Oh yeah, you can read this on the web," and you're thinking, "Oh really? So that's not really a disclosure then, if it's already out there." And when you go onto this To the Stars Inc. website that DeLong has been working on for months and years, it's just full of merchandise. You can buy the To the Stars Inc. T-shirt and To the Stars Inc. mug and To the Stars Inc. mouse mats and this sort of thing. And I'm thinking, what? This is disclosure, is it? Sorry, Andy, carry on.
Andrew, I'm a bit like you. I saw this thing. Oh, Tom DeLonge's going to do disclosure. I thought, okay. My mind immediately went back to Mr. Greer and the Disclosure Project. And around that time, I started catching up with Grant Cameron on his YouTube channel. And Grant Cameron's pretty much been saying since that happened in October, I was told a year ago that it won't be Tom DeLonge. It'll be the government insiders that stand up on stage, make themselves known and put the information out there. And it's exactly what Grant said would happen. But, people were shouting, "Oh, we've got disclosure on whatever, the 17th, 18th of December or whenever it was these films were put out." But in reality, how much disclosure can we get? My question I always ask is there ever really such a thing as an ex-spook who's telling you information that's secret? Luis Elizondo, the guy who's supposed to have been heading this special access project, he only resigned that week from the CIA. So to me, it's all a staged front. And Grant
right.
came up with a brilliant phrase. He said there are messiahs within the UFO community, Greer being one, Bill Moore being one, a blast from the past there. And Tom DeLonge is the same. You know, he got invited to a barbecue at Skunkworks. Then he gets sent to NASA. Then he gets sent to you know, it. For me, Tom DeLonge is being used because he's got an ego, and he thinks, "Oh, I'm the man. I'm the Messiah," which is exactly what they did with Stephen Greer. And for me, the Disclosure Project. The 2001 in the National Press Club, that was something pretty special. But then when I saw what happened in 2013, there was the sit-ins hearings, I thought they were absolutely amazing, the information that came out of them. There was so much information there. But Mr. Greer put his serious film out, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
We've definitely got E.T., and they released the results a couple of days before the disclosure, the citizens' hearings. And, it's a monkey, which I think most of us had figured out pretty early on in the situation. And it took the steam out of the citizens' hearings.
I mean, this is it. The whole thing is managed. And, yes, you got the name of the Louis guy, which I couldn't, Elizondo, whatever his name was. Yeah, and you're right. And the other guy, I think one of the other guys from that, going back to the DeLonge team, one of the other guys had just retired the week before he came on stage from one of the three-letter agencies. That was two of them, as Grant Cameron pointed out. And yes, you're absolutely right to mention Grant. And I mean, he basically said that one of these inside sources that DeLonge had said he couldn't name, Grant knew who he was, because Grant said that he talked to this guy or woman, I'm not sure who it was. He'd been talking to this person for quite a while, so he knew who DeLonge's sources was, but Grant wasn't asking like people to contribute to all this public outreach initiative, and so forth, like Tom DeLonge was. And he's basically, Tom DeLonge is saying, you need to support us to get this disclosure moving. Go onto our website and donate. And apparently, I think he raised $400,000, according to certain figures that you can read. I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't set alarm bells going for somebody, right, here's a millionaire who's going to furnish you with all the information you need, but I need your money. If that doesn't set alarm bells going for people, nothing will. There's the meme that everybody posts all over Facebook and Twitter and all that from X-Files. I want to believe. And I think there's so many people out there who they've got their beliefs, they want to believe it's real, and they will latch on to anything that tells them to believe without doing any sort of or enough due diligence.
This is one of the problems. And, I wrote a critique of that live stream event, I think a couple of days after it went out, and that's on my website. If anybody wants to read it, checktheevidence.com. If you put in like Tom DeLonge, which is DELONGE, put that into the search box, and that article should come up. Or watch Grant's critique, because Grant did a YouTube critique of that, which was very good. And he can cover about twice as much ground in the same time as anybody else because he talks so quickly. So, that's always useful. But Grant did a very good analysis of that. But what I wrote in my analysis is I really won't believe any type of disclosure now, whoever it is, unless it includes information about 9/11, because the events of 9/11 show, a big example of what the black world knows and what the black world can do. And anybody that doesn't have an interest in 9/11 and the technology that was used and how that connects into the UFO question and the UFO issue and the alien issue and all of that, anybody that doesn't at least indicate a strong interest in that and where to look for information, to me, it's a limited hangout disclosure. They are not going to give the full picture. I mean, one of the things which was, to give you another example, one of the things that was in the 2001 Disclosure Project, which kind of faded away quite a bit, was the energy issue. That was a really key issue for me, and that was I've got Greer to thank for that, really, because when I saw that and Greer's talking about UFOs for an hour and a half and energy for another half an hour or something, and saying this is part of the energy cover-up, I thought, oh yeah, he's right. Why didn't I think of that? But since he did that, that's kind of gradually gone on a back burner, and he hardly ever talks about that now. And the DeLong thing hardly even mentions the energy issue at all. I think he mentions it a little bit. It's some sort of going to develop these projects, but he's talking more about propulsion technologies, not so much about energy. And of course, as we spoke about last time, I think when I came with Dr. Judy Wood, that's the big one. Is the energy issue is the big one, really. It's the energy issue that affects everyone's life. I mean, it's not. We don't really have much everyday relevance for aliens and ETs. We get on with our lives. We don't really think about aliens that much. Most people don't have experience of aliens. A few people do in one way or another, and I think there's a lot of genuine experiences out there that have had real experiences, both physical and spiritual, and the spectrum in between. But energy we use every day. We use energy for everything, and so that's an issue that affects everybody 24/7, not just when they have an encounter, once, twice in a lifetime, or once a month when they have some type of abduction experience. For these people that have regular experiences, the energy issue affects you 24/7, and that's connected into this whole issue, and that's what people need to understand properly and need to realise. And that, again, is why I go back to Greer's disclosure process, because that triggered off that process, and we haven't really seen that very much. You get bits and bobs thrown out there, but apart from that, we haven't seen it since then. And the other big issue, of course, I think we may have mentioned on our previous conversations, is the issue of alien beings themselves, physical evidence of that. Greer came out, as I know you said, Andy, with this Sirius film, and he talks about this fetal thing, which I don't think it turned out to be a monkey. I think it turned out to be a human fetus, and it was Dr. Gary Nolan that was involved in that part of the investigation. And it's played down, but if you read between the lines in the film, or watch between the edits, so to speak, if that's an expression that I just made up, they more or less say that it was a human. It was a human fetus. I'm just going to have to switch this thing off. Hang on.
All right, well, while you're doing that, I'll tell everybody you're listening to Raconteurs News, broadcasting on Spreaker.com and on RaconteursNews.com as well. There's a chat room over there at RaconteursNews.com. A bit quiet tonight. I think people are just not realised that we're back on, but we're not ones for massive self-promotion anyway, and we've got a good listenership, and I know that we hear. So if you are about and you're in the chat room, let us know you're there. We've got a great guest, Andrew Johnson, and my mate Andy Young my old mucker, has joined me again tonight. Some of the stuff they're talking about and the people's names mean very, very little to me, which is why I thought it would be better to get Andy on with you to be able to you'll be able to converse on more of a even playing field, because all I know, I think Stephen Greer, I've probably watched one of his videos, but if I said sugar muscles, would that sum him up?
Yeah, I think you got an expression. I haven't really thought of that as an expression, but yeah, that would be. He does like to flex his biceps on camera, and people might like to observe that and think about what that might mean. But yeah, he is. Yeah, I mean, he's rather an aloof sort of character, and he did do a lot of good work, and he did seem to be a catalyst or a conduit, call it what you will, for a lot of good information coming out in the early 2000s. And I think a lot of the witnesses that he assembled are very important witnesses, and they have provided some credible, and important information. And it's worth reviewing most of those interviews he did. I think he's put them all on YouTube now, which is good. But he hasn't really put out any new information for well over 10 years. He's had very little new information has come out. And I actually wrote a chapter about him in my new book, which is free to download, called 9/11 Holding the Truth, because Greer is actually deliberately and willfully covering up the truth about what happened on 9/11. And I wrote about why I would say that in my new book, which I posted, and you can download it for free if you want. You can get it in paperback if you want to pay some money for it.
Give us that name again. Your name
9/11 Holding the Truth. That's the name of the book, and you can download it off my website, or I think you can download it. Yeah, you download it off my website. There is a Kindle link, but I think you have to pay $2 or something to download it from Kindle or something, or $1.99. I can't remember. But I wrote a chapter about him because he basically admitted in April last year that he worked for the CIA. He admitted that. He made a deal with them. And I'd never heard him say that before. So that again, to me, is like the Tom DeLonge thing, that he didn't have totally free range.
Well, to me, Andrew, what Greer had said over the years, the clues were there. I mean, he was always saying he'd briefed the CIA director for breakfast. He'd briefed all these presidents. He was quite clearly in that circle, and he was. It was laughable when he's talking on stage about the times they tried to bump him off.
Yeah.
I've heard countless people say, if they want you dead, you're dead.
You're dead.
It.
That's simple as, isn't it? They want you dead, you're dead.
Agree.
Unless
I agree.
Me. Sorry.
No, I agree. So yeah, and so that made sense to me when I realised he wasn't telling the truth about 9/11. The simple, basic stuff of what happened that we've discussed before, and I basically expanded that into a whole presentation. That idea that people in the UFO research community won't talk about 9/11, and it's not so much that they're not interested or they don't know. They're actually not talking about 9/11 when it's to their advantage to talk about it. And I that was the subject really of my presentation that I did at the Gary Heseltine's conference in September last year. I called it the taboo of disclosure. Well, in fact, I didn't call it the taboo of disclosure. That was the 2012 name that I gave it. I called it non-disclosure agreement. And I talked about all these people who are involved in disclosure not disclosing the truth about 9/11, which I've been doing for 9 years, longer than 10 years probably actually now. When you've got people like Steve Bassett saying in lectures, "Oh yeah, I think they developed a secret weapon from this technology, a very advanced weapon," he doesn't talk about the towers turning to dust. When that can be proved, it's been taken to a court of law, it's in a book, it's been written by a scientist. That would actually make Steve Bassett more credible because it actually backs up 100% what he's saying as being correct. Yet he will not talk about it. Instead, he talks about architects and engineers for 9/11 truth and that he knows Richard Gage. And I've got a recording of him talking about this. That's how I know it's true. When he's asked a direct question about it. And this is Steve Bassett, the man who is meant to be advocating UFO disclosure and has been advocating UFO disclosure for at least 13 years. But he won't talk about 9/11. He actually talks about the cover-up group instead,
Well, for me, Andrew, your point there was illustrated perfectly at the end of your talk in Homeforth, because I noticed one of the first hands that went up and one of the really cutting questions was from Bob Jacobs, one of the speakers. Now, Bob's been around this thing since, I think it was back in the 60s. He had his experience with a missile that he was photographing being shot down by whatever it was. He got it all on film. That film disappeared. But he had no idea of what you're talking about. And I think a lot of people in that room are so focused on the UFO ET aspect. A lot of them don't see the wider ramifications of it and the fact that they don't get here with diesel, coal or steam power.
Exactly, and that that was what the point that I was trying to make. In that if you want disclosure and you want the truth, you can't just have a bit of truth and then ignore the rest of it. If you want to learn about the UFO cover-up and who's covering it up, you've got to learn about companies like Science Applications International Corporation, SAIC, who Hal Puthoff went and worked for. And SAIC helped to compile the reports about the destruction of the World Trade Center. They bragged about helping out after the events of 9/11 in one of their shareholders' reports in 2004. Bobby Ray Inman, who was named by Greer as somebody who knows all about the UFO cover-up, was not only the head of the NSA, he was on the board of directors of SAIC. So, and SAIC are mentioned by one of Greer's witnesses in his disclosure briefing document as being big benefactors of the black budget. So Greer is not talking about his own witnesses and his own information when it relates to how the World Trade Center was destroyed, which was a directed energy weapon, which is, I didn't say it earlier on, but I meant to, connects back into the energy issue, which connects into the UFO issue. And as you said, Bob Jacobs had no inkling of this. And, he started, as you say, he had his experience, I think it was 67, 50 years ago. 50 years. And then he started talking about it, I think in 82. I listened to a few of his interviews back in 2003, 2004. And I think he said the first time he publicly talked about it, I think was 17 years after the event, which would have been 1984, I think, or maybe 82. I think it happened in 65. So he's had since then, and he was like really. You heard him on stage, and he was very bitter about how the U.S. government treated him.
Oh yeah. Well, that really surprises me because there are so many military witnesses who speak at these conferences, and they are all almost without exception not very impressed at the way the powers that be, the governments, have treated them and their superior officers. I mean, look at the military witnesses to Rendlesham on our own turf here. They've been treated abominably by not only by the Air Force, but by their commanding officer, who was Charles Holt, who tried to rubbish their stories. He's accused Larry Warren of, being a wife beater, drug addict, you name it, and loose cannon, mentally defective, just the whole thing. But it'll never back any of these things up with any sort of evidence. And yet they're treated abominably, but they don't seem to see that this entity that is causing all this grief in their life is also keeping the truth away from us. And they're lying about so much more, not just about the UFO cover-up.
Absolutely, and Larry Warren is another prime example. And he was, you can watch. I think it's still on YouTube. If you go and look at a video of an event that David Shayler spoke at, I think it was around about 2007, 2008, and David Shayler was asked a question about 9/11, and he answers it. And David Shayler is fairly well informed about 9/11. And then Larry Warren's in the same room. I think it's just like a pub type function room. It's not a fancy venue, And Larry Warren goes crackers, or not, maybe not crackers, but he gets really upset that David Shayler would say that, the official story of 9/11 is untrue, and Larry wants to go and bash Muslims and stuff, or something. I forget exactly what he says, but people can go and watch it. And I'm thinking, well, Larry, you've claimed that you've been abused by the U.S. government, so why aren't you going in to look at what happened on 9/11? Why aren't you going to look into this situation that so many people are skeptical of the official story? Why does that not interest you?
We could perhaps put that question to him because he's going to be on Raconteurs News, Larry Warren, on the 22nd of January. So we could perhaps put that question to him.
By all means, put it to him. But I think there's a very, very large number of questions about Larry Warren and his behaviour and his activities. My opinion of him has certainly completely declined in the last 2 or 3 years. Watching his behaviour, and it does not surprise me. Therefore, my earlier experience and observations of him do not surprise me as much now as they did then, based on his more recent behaviour. So it's another, and I think the whole thing that's happened with Larry, and I did mention this. I sort of alluded to it in the talk that I gave, but I haven't mentioned it since. It's another way of managing the UFO community and the Rendlesham Forest incident witness community and the researchers community. The whole Larry thing that's been cracking off in the last couple of years now, I think it's certainly been going a year. It's perception management. It's not just happened, randomly. It is by design. At least some of it is by design. People are being manipulated to respond one way or another. And so I think that's, if you look at all the evidence, that I think is that's the conclusion that you would draw. That's the conclusion I've drawn anyway.
Yeah, I at first I thought, why are these people so viciously attacking Larry? I could see where it all started. I don't want to name any names, but I thought, these are people who I've met. They were big fans and supporters of Larry and Larry's story. And suddenly they switched 180. They stopped going to conferences that he was involved with, he was at. They were ripping him to pieces. Larry's even now been and done a polygraph test. The results of that are going to be out in his new film, Capel Green, that's going to be out sometime this year. And they're all saying, oh, well, a polygraph doesn't prove anything. Yet the people that I know and have spoken to who are viciously attacking Larry have also said to me about Travis Walton. One of the things that gives his story so much credibility is the fact that he's took all these polygraph tests and passed them. So hang on, these polygraphs work for Travis, but not for Larry.
I think the situation with Larry is much more complicated though, and. I mean, I 2 or 3 years ago, I read Georgina Brunei's book, which is You Can't Tell the People. And that's a very, very good book about the Rendlesham Forest incident. And I recommend that anybody who's interested to find out more, tries to get hold of a copy of that book and read it. It's very well written, and it's a very level-headed account of what the witnesses, said. And my point is that whatever you think of Larry and his behaviour, I've already stated what my opinion is, but whatever you think of that doesn't really help you that much in finding out what happened at the Rendlesham Forest incident. If you just completely take Larry out of the picture and pretend he doesn't exist, then you can actually go and find out what happened at Rendlesham using other witness accounts and other information, because Larry is only one small part of the story. And and Georgina Brunei, what she writes in her book, which I think was written originally in 2001, I think she may have updated it. I think the edition I read was 2007. I think it was a second edition or something. I honestly can't remember. The dates don't matter that much. But she basically said that all the Rendlesham witnesses that she interviewed in her book, I think there are about 8 or 9 or 10 of them, the key witnesses, Jim Penniston, Adrian Bustinza, Edward Cabanzag, Jim Burrows, Gordon Williams, Colonel Holt, and I think a couple of UK police she tried to interview. They were witnesses to parts of the event, and they wouldn't be interviewed. I think one of them wouldn't. And then she said that in her one passage, she says all of the witnesses changed their stories over the time that she's interviewed them and re-interviewed them and stuff and asked them further questions. But she said that Larry changed his story more than anybody else. So that was her opinion. She's dead now. So, make of that what you will. But I think Georgina Bruni was a very diligent researcher. And I think she knew that she wasn't going to find the total ultimate truth of what happened at Rendlesham, but she did the best that she could. And I think she got a good, handle on what was going on. And I think the Larry part of it is only one small part. And like you say, there's a lot of people are now wrapped up in it. The pro Larry, the anti Larry camp, the let's hate Larry, let's love Larry camp. It's all a bit ridiculous now, really. And the core issue is kind of gone out of focus. What was the craft that landed? Was it actually an alien craft, or was it as I've discussed with other people, some advanced vehicle that was operated by the NSA, and they were doing a penetration test to see how the Rendlesham base would respond to this advanced craft landing outside of it and sending down probing beams. And then that I think is what is in Jacques Vallée's book, because he writes about the Rendlesham crash, and he suggests that it wasn't an alien craft that landed there, but it was some type of military, deep black military secret operation run to see how the public would react, how the UK police would react to this nuclear armed base, potentially becoming compromised by some type of invasive, force, as it were. And I think that Jacques Vallée is a very, very intelligent man and very perceptive. And he's one of these people that sort of thinks on something of a higher level to most of the rest of us, including me. He's got stuff going on in his brain which would never be going on in your brain, because he's functioning at a higher level. And there's a few people like that, and he's one of them. And so I respect his sort of analysis of that greatly.
To be fair, there's not much in Andy's brain anyway. I just wanted to get that in. To get that in. Go on, Andy. You had a question.
I was going to say, I do agree with you that there's some guys who, when you listen to them talking, there's concepts and ideas in what they're talking about with these various incidents and happenings that, like you say, normal, rational thinking people don't really come across those ideas. And an idea that really has got into my head lately, partly as a result of my experiences this last year, is like I say, I started listening to Grant Cameron again. I'd kind of stopped listening to Grant up until maybe September, October time. And it's the fact that he's now saying that we need, rather than to be looking at the nuts and bolts of this phenomena, we need to be looking more at the consciousness element of it. Because he's even saying that the military perhaps haven't got as big a handle on this as we think, because it was said in some of this disclosure thing that the military or the intelligence, they're actually studying the experiences to see what they can learn from them. So I think that there's a big part of it there that is kind of being glossed over or missed by an awful lot of the UFO community. And I
agree. And I think I was kind of surprised when Grant started talking about that, really, in one sense, because when I first came across Grant's research, that was exactly, and that I'm going back to 2003 now, so that's like 14 years ago. The first stuff I came across of his, I think after the presidential stuff, was Wilbert Smith. And Wilbert Smith basically said exactly what you just said, but he said it in, I think, 1958, 60 years ago. And he knew it was about consciousness then, and he actually wrote about it, and those writings were on Grant's site. So I was kind of I thought, well, yeah, Grant's. It's like maybe Grant's only just kind of had enough time, enough space in his sort of life to think about those concepts. I don't know, but that kind of surprised me a bit. And I know he started talking about the consciousness angle in, I think, around about 2012, because he did a couple of talks at the exopolitics, conferences. And so, yeah, definitely it's all about consciousness. And some researchers don't talk about it all that much. It doesn't really come up so much in the Rendlesham Forest incident, certainly. I think Penniston has mentioned a few things about, with his experiences. But it's not. Rendlesham's a bit more of a nuts and bolts military experience. It's not so much one of these experiences where, like, maybe where people have a feeling transcendence, to another dimension or another plane of existence or something like that. But Wilbert Smith, he realised about that, and I was talking about that back in 2008. I think I did 2009. I was talking about the consciousness and how that angle ties in, And if people who are listening are interested in that sort of stuff, the thing that I've recommended and I had recommended to me was the Wingmakers site. If you go to wingmakers.com and have a look at that, that's sort of consciousness-related stuff. And it's very, very interesting, that stuff. It's a bit... I was told, for example, by Lloyd Pye, wasn't told, but he thought that Wingmaker was just like a blooming marketing thing, to market this sort of fancy artwork and fancy, memorabilia stuff. I think there's a bit more to it than that. If you go and look at it and study it, stuff that comes out in there, and it's associated with another site called Lyricus, the Lyricus Teaching Order, lyricus.org. That's LYRICUS. I recommend people go and have a look at that, because there's some pretty interesting stuff on that, which is to do with consciousness. And I haven't studied it, like massively, but I studied it enough to think, yeah, there's something going on with this that people need to pay attention to. And so, yeah, the consciousness thing, it's all interrelated. You can't think about UFOs and aliens without thinking about consciousness. You can't think about UFOs and aliens without thinking about energy. And there is a relationship between consciousness and energy. Consciousness is, I might call it, my definition, I've seen, maybe I stole it from somebody else, but consciousness is like a form of intelligent energy almost, or you could imagine that consciousness is a form of energy which is to do with living and to do with the life processes, and it is all interrelated. And I think if you extrapolate that and say, for example, that you can use energy to affect someone's consciousness, and vice versa, you can use your consciousness to affect an energy field, as some people claim to be able to do, then I think that's why. And Wilbert Smith wrote this in 1950. I think it was 1950 memo. Was it 1950? I think it was. The 1950 memo that he wrote, which became famous later on in the UFO community, actually talks about US authorities being interested in mental phenomena in connection to the UFO issue, and that was in 1950. So if the US military phenomena and UFOs in the 1950s, in 1950, which is almost 68 years ago, 67 years ago, it was not quite into the new year. What do you think they've done in 67 years? I think they've probably weaponized that technology. And I think affecting people's consciousness with technology, and I don't mean TV here, I don't just mean YouTube, I don't just mean internet, I mean electromagnetic waves, beam technology, maybe employing something. You know, if you think of the way, for example, that a computer virus spreads, where one computer isn't properly protected, and it gets a computer virus, and then it emails that computer virus out to every computer that it connects to. That, you know, is the simplest way a computer virus works. Well, you can have a telepathic virus that gets into somebody's brain, they're not properly protected, and spreads to other brains. That's how things like the flat Earth get spread out by these mental viruses. And it's not just. I'm not just talking about the way that disinformation spreads. I'm talking about for example, the irrational reaction that I point out to people.
All right. Well, listen, Andrew, we're getting a little bit of interruption on Skype. It's been getting gradually worse, and I think it's due to the fact that my stepson has just come home from having a driving lesson, so he's probably gonna got all the all taking up all the bandwidth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the break a little bit early. I'm going to play a couple of records, and then I'm going to go and beat him to death. So right, we're going to take a break a little bit early. I'm going to play a couple of records. We're with Andrew Johnson. We'll be back after. Well, we've got Rain by East West. I know he's listening. It's one of his tracks. I know it's one of Andy's favourites. We'll see you in a few minutes.
I see clearly now as the rain falls down from mournful clouds that cry so black and grey. You're affecting me ecologically as you chase so long the butterflies away. See the people frown as the rain comes down on lit cigarettes. The raindrops play their games, but I feel unchained every time that it rains. I could never be a prisoner to the sky. But the harder it falls, we get trapped in walls, soaked by memories of our failures, and it's pouring over me. Shivering me, standing here rearranging my dreams. I don't know what fate has in mind for me no more. Rain will fall, I go blind, think I'm losing my mind. The rain kicks you and you're down until you drown. But the falls, we get trapped in walls, soaked by memories of our failures, and it's pouring over me. I keep falling over me. I can see there's a rainbow shining, showing me the way. I go blind, I go blind. Time has left me so far behind. Now I wonder if I'll ever see the blue sky shining. My heart's crying. As the rain falls down, clouds across the rain came down. You're affecting me ecologically as you chase along the butterflies away. See the people frown as the rain comes down on lit cigarettes. The raindrops play their games.
I'ma have some fun with this one here.
Woo-hoo! In the morning, when I wake up, all I want is marijuana. In the evening, when I'm thinking, all I want is marijuana. If you look in my eyes, you will see what I've done. Every minute, every hour of every day. But life is like a smoke. In the end, I'm gonna choke. So all I do is live my life from day to day.
Oh my God, you know you better watch yourself because I know you're waiting on that one. Cause I'm telling you, Nana. Cause you know the one that I take off for a run. You let me see you do that run. Run, the one that they clan, the one that done. Cause I know you cannot be me now, what you wanna do. Cause I'm about to break it down, me, cause you know you cannot fade me now, let you wanna. You better back it down now, because I'm telling you, what bar, bun bar, can I wonder. Because you know you like the way I put that pick up. Cause I'm telling all you fools what happened, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy. Now what you wanna do, and in a mercy.
If you look in my eyes, you will see what I've done. Every minute, every hour of every day. But life is like a smoke. In the end, I'm gonna choke. So all I do is live my life from day to day. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, crease it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, poke it, roach it, smoke it, then you pass it to me.
Come on, baby girl, let's get it going on. I'ma hit the highway and do it my way. It ain't no game, girl, so I don't play games. I keep it up straight, right up in your face. So make your mind up, cause life is too short. I got the vest on, boy, put your belt on. Stop acting all cool like Kanye West, boy. You be riding through the wire and the camera get on fire. You don't want that, no, I don't want that, no. This goes out to pimps and chicks, so slow. Hit the backseat when you're doing the licking, kissing, squeezing. Do the damn thing, man.
You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, press it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, on it, roach it, smoke marijuana, pass it to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, press it, stack it, burn it, pack it, roll it, on it, roach it, smoke marijuana to me. You got to lick it, stick it, bend it, press it, stack it, burn it. All I want is roach and smoke marijuana to me.
it, stick it, bend it,
when
grease
I'm
it, stack
thinking,
it, burn it, pack it,
all
roll
I
it,
want
poke it,
is
roach it, smoke
Mary
it, then you pass
Joanna.
it to me.
And welcome back to Raconteurs News. That's two from Heath there. Heath Dweft. You find him on Facebook, HeathDwetht. Heath Dweft. That's marijuana as well, 2016. So welcome back. I just want to make a couple of mentions of things before we get back on with our guest. I had a lovely email from Yvonne Hartley at the Jeremy Bamber campaign today. It said, "Hello Jason, Yvonne here from the campaign team. I hope you're keeping well and ready for Christmas, and I hope you get a well-deserved rest. Thank you so much for mentioning Jeremy on your recent shows. It is really much appreciated, and I have told Jeremy, who is thrilled at all the support you are giving him. I have been tuning in when I can. I know Super Leeds told you that if you played Marching On Together, he would send Jeremy £100. He has very kindly sent this money to Jeremy today because you played it. Thank you so much for all your help and support. It really does make a difference." That's from Yvonne Hartley at the Jeremy Bamber campaign, which is something I wanted to mention to Andrew. If you're speaking to Rich Hall at any point, there's something he could make a film about very, very easily, and it's the information is compelling. The evidence that Jeremy Bamber is innocent is absolutely compelling. So anyway, thank you once again to Super Leeds. I know it cost me playing Marching On Together, but I did do it. Anyway, back to this evening. I've got Andy Young joining me. He's co-hosting my former co-host, and hopefully he'll be doing it again in the future. I would imagine he will be doing it on the 22nd when we've got Larry Warren on. Monday the 8th of January, which is next Monday, we've got the King and Queen of the Sovereign State of Good Hope. They'll be joining me here on Raconteurs News. So let's get back to tonight's guest. I've got Andy Young, and we've got Fleece Wearer of the Year, Andrew Johnson. Good evening, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fine, thanks. And, I've switched the video off because I know that people are going to be, get OD on the fleece otherwise, so...
Well, right, with this, you were talking in the break, you and Andy were having a bit of a chat about the footage. Do you want to take that where it wants to go, Andy?
What I brought up was the fact that John Lear weighed in on very quickly on the head-up display footage that was shown on the alleged Pentagon disclosure, and he's basically come out. And for those of you who are not aware who John Lear is, he's one of the most qualified pilots, if not the most qualified pilot that's ever walked this planet. He's the only man to ever hold licenses to fly every type of plane, as far as I'm aware. He's flown for the CIA. He's flown as an airline captain for many, many years. And his father started the Learjet Corporation. Now, John came out right away and he said the video was clearly faked because he said that, firstly, pilots don't talk to each other in that way. They don't call each other bro and dude. He also pointed out that the wind noise that was heard from the cockpit wouldn't happen because he explained how the mic is inside the face mask and it's sealed from any extraneous noise. He also said that the clouds on the video clearly looked fake. And another thing he pointed out was the way the pilots described the wind. They're saying it's 120 knots from such and such a direction, whereas in reality they'd actually give a bearing and a speed in knots without saying knots because it's always in knots. But it would be a bearing. They wouldn't say it came from the south or the southwest or whatever. So any thoughts on that at all, Andrew?
Well, I mean, I haven't looked at the video. I haven't listened to it. John Lear is quite reliable on some things, but quite unreliable on others. So, certain things he's done seem really good, and other things seem like ridiculous. So I've got sort of mixed feelings about him, although I have communicated with him once or twice, and he seemed like a genuine guy, but I think he just seems to go with the latest information. But he does, like you say, he does seem to know what he's talking about. He is connected with the Lear family, all the stuff that you said. That I don't really have any, questions about that. But I think, again, this thing of putting out this video, it's another little bit of Easter egg hunting, or whatever you want to call it, and it's nothing new. I mean, while you were speaking there, I was thinking to myself of this video that was released 13 years ago from the Mexican Air Force, where they filmed. They basically were tracking flights that were coming over the Mexican border, and it was I think it was a drugs busting, group of the Mexican military or the Mexican government agency, and they were using these FLIR cameras to film aircraft, at night, and they picked up these UFOs, and that was released to the world, and the Mexican military said, "Yeah, these are UFOs; they're not planes," and so we've seen this. It wasn't exactly gun camera footage, but if you look at it, it was somewhat similar. This was the same sort of thing, and this was 13 years ago. But it'll just all blow over. It's just another fad. But a few people will take an interest, and it'll go around the UFO circuit, and people will go on coast to coast and talk about it. But you won't get anybody in the government saying, yeah, this is all part of a psychological operation. We have been covering up this technology. We're keeping the rest of the human race enslaved, because really we want to keep the human race enslaved with all this clunky fossil fuel rubbish. And we've managed to do it for 50 years. So we're going to continue to do it for as long as we can, because that's how we operate and that's what we want to do. So all this UFO stuff, we'll throw you the odd bit of interesting stuff now and again, but don't expect anything to change, because it won't. My view on all of this, as I've said several times and I've alluded to tonight, will only change when I see BBC News completely shut down, Fox News shut down, CNN shut down, and I see people actually coming out and speaking honestly, not trying to debunk anything, saying, yes, we know that the World Trade Center was turned to dust on 9/11 by a weapon system that's been developed by a black world group, and we know that that black world group has some connections to Science Applications International Corporation. Until I see that disclosure coming out, I'm not really going to take much of an interest in anything that comes out, other than just to pass a few comments on it, because I know it's not going to be the full Monty, to use a slightly out-of-date expression. I want the full Monty. That's what I want, because only when we get the full Monty does the world really change, and we've seen so many times now in the last few years, we had this whole build-up to 2012. What happened to 2012? What happened? Nothing happened. Everything stayed the same, apart from a few people, becoming aware of certain things. But did the BBC do anything? Did we see people from the BBC arrested for protecting the paedophile network? Did we see the governments of all major Western countries falling because they can no longer be propped up by the intelligence services that cover up all their crimes and misdemeanors that go on behind the scenes to protect all this knowledge, the sort of stuff we talk? No, we didn't see any of that, And there was somebody saying last week to me, we've got this, all these chief executives have just resigned from all these companies, so we're going to have a big disclosure and a big enlightenment this year. Are we? Really? Well, let's see some more. Let's see some enlightenment about things that we actually know. 9/11, as I've said before, we know what happened. They can't cover that up now. They can cover it up, obviously, because they do. But what I mean is, the evidence is out there. The evidence is proved, and we can know the significance of it if we choose to know that. That's what I mean.
Yeah. For me, Andrew,
a big part of where people have missed a trick here is that they're jumping up and down saying, "Oh, we've got this information; it's out in the mainstream media." But we know that the mainstream media have been lying to us for decades. They've been covering up anything the government wants to cover up. We know that the intelligence services have got people embedded within all strata of the mainstream and alternative media. And they suddenly think it's like Brexit. You know, we went for this Brexit vote and we're told, oh, we've got Brexit. And then we're 18 months down the line and nothing's happened.
Yes.
So I said to people, "Oh, Brexit, you suddenly think that they're going to give us democracy? It didn't happen." And for me, the mainstream media putting out little bit slivers of information like this that are very restricted to a certain aspect, like you say, they don't mention the beings that are piloting these craft.
Yeah.
It's just another way that we're being manipulated by the mainstream media. And I was kind of I was hopefully optimistic that it might come to some more. I mean, Luis Elizondo has said he managed to get 24 films out from the CIA before he resigned in disgust from there, and then a week later appeared on stage with Tom DeLonge. I'm sorry, but I'm not really buying that.
No, exactly. You know, and I mean, I have a very sort of, going back to some of the things I was saying earlier on about the people. In other words, my biggest problem, really, one of my biggest problems is that the people that should be doing the disclosure, as in the Stephen Greers, the Stephen Bassetts, the Tom DeLonges, are not actually interested in information that myself and other people want to give to them, like what I've already gone over. They won't talk about that. And then we switched to the other stuff. We started talking about this being, that was in Greer's film, the Sirius film that you mentioned in 2013, this alleged alien being. But then we have Lloyd Pye's Star Child skull. Greer would never talk about that. In fact, I don't think he's ever mentioned it. And now what's happened to that? Now what's happened to that is that the person who owns it, Melanie Young, has come out and said earlier, about almost a year ago, not quite a year ago, that it's the skull of a human child, and that Lloyd Pye was leading her up the garden path. She said that 14 years after, she gave him the flipping skull to take around the world, And then you got people like Mel Fabregas, who runs this Veritas show, actually helping Melanie Young and encouraging her to tell lies. Is that disclosure? Is that disclosure about alien life? And that, we're not even talking about BBC or anything like that, or, ITV or Sky News. This is the flipping disclosure community that's supposed to be doing the disclosure. They're telling lies about the people that were doing disclosure, before they died. So they're telling lies about people after they've died to prevent other people from finding out the truth. That's disclosure, is it? That's enlightenment, is it? So you can see I've got a pretty dim view of what some of these other people are coming out and saying, as regards, well, not just the Tom DeLonge thing. That's just, another sort of episode in a kind of managed process, which is basically leading down different dead ends, so it would appear, And if people want to find out what I'm saying about the Lloyd Pye and the Star Child thing, again, go onto my website, checktheevidence.com, and you can read up, on that. And I posted this article on my website. I think it was in April or May last year, and I haven't really had any comments back from these people, and they've just tried to they've spent a year debunking the Star Child skull now. This woman called Chase Kloetsky, and she's actually told lies about it as well. I've documented at least one of those on my website. So why are people that are meant to be involved in disclosure lying about things that we know the truth about? What's going on? That's not enlightenment.
No, it's like you say. It's not difficult. The Larry Warren saga, for want of a better word, shows how easy it is. Because you would have thought that the UFO community would be a really tight-knit community. You would have thought that, wouldn't you? So, but that just shows you that even a really tight-knit community can be dragged apart and divided, and it's due to we seem to have got this mentality, like you were saying before, that people. I think Andy was saying it actually. People attach themselves to things. They want things.
Yeah.
They chase things that they desire rather than looking for truth. And that's when somebody's a master manipulator. And I'm not saying anybody is. I don't know. I'm from the outside looking in. But when someone's a master manipulator, they can manipulate that to their advantage. And that seems what the security services like the CIA are doing. They knew that putting this story out about this disclosure, and then showing some footage, and with some. And I know you've not seen the footage, but the footage is what Andy says. It doesn't sound like pilots talking to each other. What the fuck's that, bro?
Right.
What the fuck's? I mean, that's just not what pilots do, is it? I mean, has he got a passenger in back or whatever? So again, someone to live somewhere who's saying that sort of thing. So they knew that would divide people, and it's a master stroke. It's so easy to divide people.
I think it is that people do want something to latch onto, and they do have beliefs, and this is one of the issues that you have to separate belief from knowledge, and you have to talk about what what the truth is. And if you're going to talk about belief, make sure you make it absolutely clear that you're talking about belief. It's only through knowledge and having knowledge and using knowledge that things change. And if you're prevented from having knowledge, or you ridicule the people that do have knowledge, then you can manage the situation. And that's so when you manipulate people's emotions and you manipulate them into awkward situations where their everyday life is goes out of balance, so that can mean for example, you freeze all their bank accounts, or you remove their ability to make a living for themselves. That's when things get really difficult for people, and they become, they have to go into survival mode. And these are the mechanisms that are used on people when they get close to being powerful enough, to spread knowledge, and not, and then you move away from belief, And anybody that's like Tom DeLonge, he's a very popular guy in his field. They've had to manage him, because if they didn't feed him certain information, and sort of stroke his ego in ways that he doesn't really perhaps realize, then he could have made a huge impact in delivering knowledge to a certain group of people that wouldn't have had access to it. So they've had to manage him. And probably the same is true of what they did with Stephen Greer, because he had a certain audience. Stephen Greer is highly intelligent. He's very articulate, very good communicator. He's better a communicator than I am. So when he was getting involved and meeting a lot of powerful people, they had to get in there and manage him. And I think that's what they do. That's the way that they operate, And that's, speaking personally for myself, that in one sense is why I've just sort of been doing my own thing, and I haven't actively sought out a large audience. I've never tried to sort of buddy up to anybody. I mean, I'm not very good at that sort of thing anyway, even if I wanted to. But I'm not trying to reach somebody that has a lot of money or a lot of influence and say, look, you need to put this information out, because I know that it could be very dangerous for them to do that, and very dangerous for me to do it. So I've kind of just let things. I've kind of gone with the flow, what I've done. But the result is that although you go with the flow, you stay safe, and you stay in a situation. I think, and I've been in a fairly stable situation for sort of 20 years now, but you don't have very much reach. You don't have, that you don't reach that many people. You don't the audience that you can reach and the knowledge that you can give them is more limited. So that the people that are in the shadows are quite happy with that situation because they know that you're not going to really change things that much. You're not really going to have a big impact on anybody. So they don't. That's why they don't bother with you. They don't really worry you.
There's a lot of that on internet censorship. I'm always suspicious if someone's got a huge following. I'm always suspicious because I post some things on. I used to post things on Facebook. I don't anymore. I took it off my phone. I only now use it on a tablet so that I've not got it in my phone. Because I felt that it was just like having a needy child in your phone that kept popping up notifications and tugging on you and saying, attention, I need attention. So I just got rid of it off my phone. So whenever I want to use Facebook, I've got to either use my tablet, which is in the house, it's got no SIM card in it, or I've got to use a laptop. So I've got to physically go somewhere and do something to go on Facebook. So I've got rid of it off my phone. And one of the reasons I got rid of it is that, look, I consider myself, shall we say, I consider myself to be a pretty funny guy, and I've posted some things that I thought were hilarious, and I've posted them. I've got no reaction whatsoever. So, I know there are certain people that will react in a certain way. Like my dad, he's got the same sense of humour as me, but he never sees them, and Heath as well. But people never see him. Most of the things. So I thought to myself, right, Facebook, I'm giving you everything that you want, everything you desire. All my data, all my information, you've got a microphone in my pocket, listening to whatever I do, and you're giving me nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nobody sees nobody sees me posts. Nobody does anything. So why am I still having you in my pocket and carrying you around? It's just that's the reason why, which is why I'm always suspicious, because I know I know my own integrity, but I'm always suspicious of somebody who just suddenly, especially someone who just appears on the scene, and does these things.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to manipulate, and that's the reason why the good information don't get anywhere, and. It's just, what's the point? What's the point? But people like you, Dr. Judy Wood, she's somebody I never see anything referenced to online. I've interviewed her, and I do know of obviously her book and all that, all her work and everything, and the directed energy weapons stuff, and. I know of her, but I know of her because of previously I've been involved in this. So if I'm not seeing anything that's referencing her, then how is somebody that posts pictures of the dinner going to see anything?
No, they're not, are they?
Well, they're not.
Exactly.
They're not going to see anything. It's going to upset them.
I did see this thing has been happening for a while with Facebook, where they're restricting the visibility of your posts, even amongst your friends list. And the thing that brought it into sharp contrast with me was Max Egan. And he said quite a way back, I think it was around the middle of last year, that he was posting the links to his radio show on Facebook, and he was lucky if he got half a dozen people responded to those links, even though he's got 5,000 followers on each of his Facebook accounts. Nobody was seeing them. So it was a complete waste of his time and energy. And I still use Facebook as a way to publicise the show. I kind of keep in touch with a few people over there. But really, as far as trying to get any sort of a message out there, it's a complete waste of time. I mean, I know a lot of people are complaining about their hits are getting restricted on YouTube and that sort of thing. Have you had that sort of experience? Because I know a lot of people have. I know Francis Richard Connolly's been in touch with me over the break saying that he had a very interesting experience. He got in touch with Corey Feldman's publicist.
Oh, yes, I was thinking of him, actually. Yeah, carry on, yeah.
Yeah, and he asked her to make him aware of his film, 9/11.
Everything is Rich Man's Trick. Yeah.
That's the one, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And as soon as he did that, it got removed by YouTube and banned. And they've given him no reason whatsoever for banning it. I'm not sure whether it's back up or not yet. I don't get that much contact with Francis, but be interested to get him back on and have a chat about that sometime.
Definitely, yeah. And I've had a friend of mine, Mark Conlon, who'd been doing 9/11 related videos. He not only had his YouTube channel deleted, he had his Google account deleted as well at the same time, which is, I've never heard of that happening before. You know, they just deleted his Google account, his whole Google account, as well as his YouTube account.
Wasn't that shortly after he did the Rich Planet show with you and Richard?
It was around the same time, yeah. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it was round about then, yeah. So there do seem to be certain sensitive topics. Now, I haven't had my YouTube channels deleted or post deleted, but then again, like I said, some of my videos get like 200 hits, you know, something like that. It depends what they are, you know. But I don't promote my YouTube channel anywhere. I don't have a regular podcast or anything like that. I've kind of actually avoided doing that because it's just not. I've just found that it's not something I warm to doing, you know. So I just usually do things by invitation. That's just the way that I work, mainly, you know. And so I haven't experienced that, but that might be because, I mean, that as I recall, that Francis Richard Connolly's video, he picked up a lot of hits for that, I think, in a few months, didn't he? Got about 1 million views in about 6 months, I think, or something.
Oh, the last time I saw, I think it was either 3.5 or 5 million it got on it. So,
that's what I thought. Yeah, because none of my videos have. I mean, some of my videos have been on there since 2011, and I think the biggest one was got when that did actually get disabled, and it was just a clip from Loose Change. It was 15 minutes from Loose Change, and that got disabled recently, but that was due to a copyright claim. Because that Loose Change film has been bought by somebody in the last year, I think. Somebody's bought it up and repackaged it on their website. So they've gone around and copyright struck various other versions of it, I think.
Oh dear!
So
nobody told me. I worked on that.
You worked on Loose Change?
Yeah. Only in a very small capacity, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, back in 2005 or 6.
Yeah, 5.
All right. So who did you know that was involved with that? Then Dylan Avery or Corey Rowe?
And all of them. I knew all of them. I got in.
Did you do some of the music then?
No, I didn't do any music. No.
Right. That's interesting. Then I didn't know you were involved with that.
Yeah. Only on a very small, minor basis, but yeah, I was involved in it. I had a very interesting conversation with Corey not too long ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He had a load of shit with military, but I'm still suspicious of him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I know other people that are suspicious of them, and in fact, Mark Connell and I were having conversations about that not too long ago about, you know, was Loose Change another kind of managed disclosure? Do you know what I mean? And that you know, like going back to Tom DeLonge as we were earlier, maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's an honest guy, maybe he started out with honest intentions. You know, he's probably going to have, if you're a front man for a band, a popular band, let's just say you're not going to have an ego which is non-existent. You've got to have some type of ego because you've got to be confident. You know, you've got to have that level of confidence. So that, you know, and if you've been doing it for a few years and getting results and getting a lot more fans and stuff, that's going to build your ego up. So they can use that against you. They can stroke it, you know.
Yeah, it were very exciting when Mark Cuban were going to get involved. I think he's a billionaire, isn't he? And
That's right. Yeah.
And they were going to get Charlie Sheen to do the narration, but that all seemed to fall through. I mean, I don't know whether that was knowing what I now suspect about Charlie Sheen. I would have thought that would have been a bad move, but
I think so too.
I know that the guys went to his house a couple of times and hung out with him and discussed it, but it never happened in the end, did it? And Mark Cuban even pulled out. I think he were threatened, or that was the story, that he was threatened, because it's easy to do this, isn't it? Put out the story that there's going to be a Charlie Sheen's going to narrate. Mark Cuban's it's going to be the biggest thing ever. It's going to be in theatres, and then just pull the plug. That to me, it seems to be set up.
I think you're right, Jason, and I think you've only got to look at what happened. I mean, to people like Jimmy Walter, who I didn't really meet him. I went to the same event as him. I didn't really speak to him. I did communicate with him by email, but he sounds a bit like a Mark Cuban sort of character. He was a Florida millionaire or billionaire, and he got involved in he was doing stuff a little bit before Loose Change got some traction, and he basically ended up disappearing off the scene. He didn't get I think he lost an awful lot of money over it, and I think they managed to seize some of his assets, but he survived. And he just went on a back burner, and just kept his head down for a few years, and has done ever since,
what would be interesting, Andrew, if we could do a show, obviously on a future date, but if we could do a show and we could go over some of the really old 9/11 stuff, the 9/11 truth stuff, and what was going on and what was happening, and going back and recommending some videos that people perhaps overlook these days. In these days, it's just a huge, it's like picking a drop of water out of a bucket, isn't it? You're picking on the right.
It can be, yeah. So the videos tend to fall into two categories, really. But that might be an interesting sort of exercise to do at some point.
Yeah, brilliant. Because I feel, speaking to somebody who's got the same experience as I had at the early days of when the 9/11 truth movement was huge at one point, wasn't it? It was huge, and that's another thing that made me suspicious of Dylan Avery.
Yeah.
It was huge. And he had a forum. Everyone who whoever saw Loose Change, they ended up on the Loose Change forum. And we're talking back in the day before social media. I sound like I'm talking about the good old days, but I think it was, because the sharing of information was far greater than it is today. But anyway, the Loose Change forum was absolutely massive. Absolutely massive, and there were tons and tons of people on there, and Dylan Avery kept changing it. He kept moving it and saying, look, this forum's knackered, we need to move all the admins and mods, and we've got trolls and all this, and then he'd move it, and he did that about 3 or 4 times until it diluted down the membership and the people posting, because they never knew where they were. So I think that's another thing that made me suspicious, because you've got this forum that had 200,000 members, and they were members joining all the time, and there were so many people. It were a great community. I remember some of the names, like Rocksdog. I don't know who he is. He was a guy. I sent him some tea, in fact. We got to be that close friends. I sent him some Yorkshire tea, and he over to America. And so, these bonds were formed, but it seemed like they were being dismantled from within.
Jason, that's very interesting that you relate that, because I relate similar experiences in my book 9/11 Holding the Truth, and I never joined the Loose Change forum, not for any particular reason, but I did join the UK 9/11 Truth forum, and I'm surprised, from what you just said, that I never saw you on there. But that was the same sort of story. It did stay in the same place, but the control of that forum was given to Tony Gosling, and he still has control of that forum. And we had a lot of enthusiastic users, but then it kind of all faded away after about a couple of years, really, something like less than 2 years. And I left that forum and I stopped posting there. because I got the sense that it was being managed. The people in the shadows had got their sort of dirty mitts on it, and they were steering things. And it sounds very similar to what you described with the Loose Change Forum. And in fact, there are other forums too. There was Killtown's forum. There was another forum for the Scholars Group, which got moved, and then that got shut down. And then there was another 9/11 research forum, which was run by Rick Siegel. That got shut down after about a year. And then there was another one, which I think was run by Jeff Hill, Pump It Out Forum. That got shut down after about a year. So, like you say, it gets divided down, diluted down, and what starts out as a large and enthusiastic community just becomes a set of sort of disillusioned individuals that think, oh, yeah, we did all of that years ago and nothing happened, a bit like what I said earlier on. In other words, they manage these groups, they put out the trolls, they activate these tactics, and that basically starts the downhill trend.
And also, I do remember, I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that I saw you posting under your own name on the James Randi forum. You remember that one?
I may well have posted on there a couple of times. Yeah, I do remember. That got moved as well.
That was Troll Central, though. That was the place where they all gathered. And they tried to make fun of people that were questioning it. But the interesting thing about is the JREF forum was that it opened in August 2001.
Did it really? I did not know that.
There you go.
I did not know. I never bothered to check. That is interesting because, that forum was, like you say, was exactly as you described. And what happened there was we had a couple of those trolls. They used to use code names, and I remember a couple of them. One of them was called Gravy.
Yep. Listen, I got arrested. I got arrested for threatening him.
Did you really?
I did, yeah. I got arrested for threatening him.
That's what they wanted. That's what they wanted, because they came onto our UK 9/11 forum and tried to get other people to do that. And one of them wrote, because I was a moderator, and one of them, Gravy, I think his real name was Mike somebody.
Oh, I'll tell you.
I can't remember his second name.
Because there was it were Mark Roberts.
Right. Okay.
Because there was a very short YouTube clip going around, and it was Mike Roberts gay spy, and so that just went everywhere on we amongst truthers like. But Mark Roberts was his name, and he was a tour guide in New York. Now, I got a knock on my door one night. I think it was April 2006, maybe. I think it was probably 2006. And I got a knock at my door, and this policeman stood there. And it was not long after. It was only a couple of years since I'd been arrested for blackmailing David Beckham. I know this sounds bad, Andrew, but this is all things that have happened to me. But so this copper stands at my door, and he's an absolute tower. And all I can remember is I remember his face, and I remember the time that I was arrested for blackmailing David Beckham. A copper said to me, "See him there," and because he was stood behind custody desk, he said, "See him there. If he comes and knocks at your door, you're in trouble." And that just all went through. That's what went through my mind when I opened the door, and it was him. But he said, we went down to the police station. He said, "Listen, I've had this on my desks for about 2 months, and I keep telling me boss keeps telling me to get it sorted, and I keep telling him to piss off. It's a waste of time." So he says, "What's going to happen is I'm going to take you down to the police station, right? I'm going to give you I'm going to give you a caution. You're going to accept the caution, and then I'm going to take you home. We'll be home in half an hour." And he was true to his word.
Wow.
True to his word. Wow. But that was because I'd sent a message over on a forum saying to Mark Roberts that I'm going to come over to New York, and I'm going to give him a thick ear. That was it.
A thick ear, eh?
A thick ear. And also, they told me that I was on the no-fly list as well. It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely amazing. But yeah, that was the sort of crap that were going off back then. Everything got completely seriously by them. You know, if you're just making a joke or something, they took it completely to one, you know, to a complete extreme. It was, it was nuts.
I knew. I mean, I knew when I saw that sort of stuff going on, because I was all new to it back in 2005. But I worked it out pretty quickly that that's what they were doing. They were trying to get people, like Fetzer, for example, who I wrote about. He was desperate to get people like me to try and sue him for character assassination or something like that, or libel or something, whatever it was. In other words, the trolls want to rile you up so that you put energy into activities which are not to do with disclosing the truth to other people. Anything that they can do to take your time away from doing that, which includes, you know, you getting to argue with them, you not spending time making posters or making DVDs or whatever it is you want to do, if they can take your time away from doing that, they're reducing your ability to carry things out. And so that is their goal. That is their goal. Doesn't matter how they do it, you know, that is their goal. And if they can get you, like, you know, to threaten them, that's brilliant. You know, they'll get a bonus from their contractors for doing that. If they can get you to threaten them, you know, anything that can be taken as any kind of threat, that's what they want. And that was illustrated to me in the way that they were doing it. And also when that guy sent me a post as a moderator, said, "Oh, you got to ban this guy because he threatened me," you know. And I think I don't think I even responded to the message because it was so utterly ridiculous. But I think the baffling thing comes when you wonder where these people get the time. People like this Mark Roberts, whatever his name was. Where did they get the time to do this stuff? And what is their motivation? You know, are they being paid? Have they had as I found out, a misdemeanor where they've been offered a deal to work for the intelligence services as an exchange for a lesser sentence or a reduced sentence or whatever? Or what is it? You know, and you do find that this is one of the ways that they manipulate people. Some of the trolls are actually, they have a you know, a not very good history in their life, and they've been used to manipulate an issue because, you know, they've been a bad boy or a bad girl. You know, it's a huge problem.
It's a very easy way to manipulate people, isn't it? And
it is.
Just going back to the manipulation of viewing figures, I remember I've had a long couple of conversations with Francis about the restriction. He was not sure whether the YouTube figures that he was getting were entirely accurate. And I pointed out to him that it was probably a couple of years ago when I got really quite busy with doing the radio show. I was very curious that the stats we were getting from the back end of the website didn't match with what we were getting on YouTube and Spreaker. And I came to the conclusion, all on my own really, that what was happening here, these YouTube, Spreaker and any other websites that you deal with, they're in the business of selling you advertising. And if you don't buy their advertising, you'll never get big figures on there. Now, when you do buy their advertising, I pretty much guarantee it. I haven't tried it myself because I'm not prepared to spend the money, but I guarantee your figures will go through the roof. And as soon as you stop spending on their advertising, they go down again. So I did myself a little search on Google, and I searched, I can't remember the combination of words, but YouTube manipulating statistics, viewing statistics.
Yeah.
And I got loads of blogs, and they weren't just one article that had been spun by different bloggers. You could see there were clearly different articles, and they were written with varying degrees of passion, disgust, rage, outrage. And people were really pissed off that YouTube had been manipulating their statistics. And I think the figures ranged from somewhere between 8 times and 200 times their real figures. So that, you know, if somebody got 1 million views, it was only showing up as like 5,000 or 50,000. And the strange part was, even though it was either 20 14 or 15 when I did this search. Nothing in the search results was from after 2006. So you've got to draw the conclusion from that. Either A, YouTube stopped manipulating the statistics after 2006, or B, they scrubbed the internet of any search results after 2006.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that really has sent Francis down quite a rabbit hole. I know he's had long conversations with John McAfee about it.
That's interesting. I mean, the thing is that when you think about how YouTube works and stuff and similar services, obviously you're at their behest because they're giving you free data storage space and a lot of it as well. It's when you add up all these videos and stuff, and it's a heck of a lot of space. But because they're giving you it for free, they can basically do what they like. They can delete your content, they can hide it. It's basically carte blanche. So you're at their disposal, really. So I think it's almost amazes me sometimes that we actually do manage to get some of this information out to at least a small audience, of a few hundred or a few thousand or whatever it works out to be. Because, we don't have to pay for YouTube services. I think Spreaker's a bit different because you only get a limited amount of storage, don't you, if you don't pay for it. YouTube's still unlimited storage, even if you don't pay for it, in principle. So, they're gonna, how can they earn all this money from advertising? Maybe they do, but it seems like an awful lot they managed to earn to run all these expensive services, So they're gonna manipulate search results. It's a way of perception managing the world again. If you want my sort of opinion on that.
Oh yeah, I think we are entirely at the behest of these people, like you say, and they could put whatever they like for their statistics, and unless you've got a website that's running parallel to their service, you've really got no idea whether they're telling you the truth or not.
No.
That's true about everybody, isn't it?
I was looking at Google Live stats in the back end of the website one night when we were on air, and we had, I believe, 58 people logged into the chat room. Google Live traffic was telling me there was one person on the entire website. So it kind of makes you think not really telling you the truth, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I think it's like a lot of things, you can get wrapped up in your own stats, can't you? And you can spend a lot of time trying to unravel it all or trying to boost your stats or whatever. And, of course...
Yeah, I think I speak for Jason here in that we really don't take that much notice of the stats.
No.
Because if you do, you can tend to get a bit absorbed with that. And plus, how much of it can you believe anyway? And plus, there is also the other danger that once you get to a certain level of viewing figures, and that figure is known, that you're going to come right up on their radar, and that's when they're going to start giving you grief. We haven't really had any grief for what we do, and I believe that's probably because... although we did join up part of a bigger organisation at one stage, we've pulled back. We're just on our own, and we're not big enough to make those sort of waves. We're not coast to coast. We're not George Norrie or Jimmy Church or anybody like that. I think those guys do a great thing, but they've got to be so much more careful what they say because they'll get jumped on.
I think there's partly that, but I think, when you've got something of the scale of Coast to Coast, for example, which is on every night of the week, you just get so much stuff put on there, and some of it's good, some of it's average, and some of it's just total nonsense, and it just becomes mixed together, so that it's hard for people to sort out. And that's another way of managing. In other words, we have all this information on the internet, which we didn't have 10, 15, 20 years ago. But there's so much more noise now that it's like almost like there's so much noise that it's like not having the information available at all, because it takes so much of the time to just get through the noise, And like Jason was saying earlier on, so many people are using Facebook just, to put up pictures of the meal that they had, or, they've just been in the supermarket and, done something there.
But that's the mentality, Andrew. That's the mentality that's been drilled into them from a very, very early age. And particularly this generation now have become so narcissistic, and they think that everybody wants to see everything in their life. And if they think that if they fall behind and they're not the first one to do this, just have a look at whenever it says on anything, a YouTube video or anything on Facebook, it always says, be the first to like this. Now, that's feeding into the narcissisticness of people. I don't know if that's
narcissism.
Narcissism, yeah. But that be the first to like this, that just shows you, why would you care, even? It's just so nuts. But people put so much energy into this sort of thing because that's how they're conditioned. They're trained to go to work, do what they're told, wear the uniform if they're told to wear the uniform, and you'll get some money. The government will take a little bit off you, but that's just for everybody, isn't it? Really, it's it's bollocks, and people fall for it. But that's because the education system's done. It's knackered. It's not education. It's training. Sorry.
Yeah.
Bit of a rant.
We've got an interesting question come up for Andrew in the chat room here.
Okay.
I can't credit the poser of the question because unfortunately everybody's going to Anons at the minute. I'm going to have to try and sort out in the chat room what's doing that. People are setting account names and then they get booted off, and when they come back, they're anonymous. So, But the question is, Andrew, have you ever been warned off?
No. I've never really received anything. The weirdest thing that's happened was a good few years ago now, because I used to do GCSE maths tuition where I'd put an advert up on a website somewhere as a maths tutor, for home evening sort of tutor after school sort of thing, and I did that for a few years, just sporadically, really. Didn't do it a massive amount. Just a bit of extra cash in hand sort of thing. And one day I just got this email out of the blue from this guy called Michael who wanted help with his algebra. And it was a Word document, and I opened this up, this message, and it was nga.mil in the email address, nga.mil. Which was the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, right, so this guy from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency wants me to help him with his algebra. Okay. Now, there was no actual warning in there or anything, but clearly there was some hidden message in there somehow. I don't know quite what it was. But the only thing I really sort of thought of that was that they were just wondering if I was passing on this information to students that I was dealing with. They were testing me out to see if I was going to try and get some, 9/11 or UFO stuff in my response to this person.
Well, here's an interesting thought that's just occurred to me, Andrew. Now, I would imagine as an ethical principle, when you're teaching people, you certainly wouldn't volunteer any of this sort of information to them, because if someone is not ready for that information, it can do all kinds of damage to them. But
correct.
Do you ever get students that ask you about this side of what you do, and how do you handle that if that occurs?
Well, you're absolutely right, Andy. I think, back when I was in the early days, I was more inclined to try and sort of tell students when it came up, but getting into context was always difficult. And I think I only did it. Maybe I was talking about UFO stuff. I can't remember, but I don't often give tutorials because most of the stuff we do is online. So I don't often give face-to-face tutorials. And it was right at the end of the tutorial. There's only one guy that turned up. And I thought, well, I'll just give it a go with some UFO stuff. It was something. But the guy just didn't. It was just like I hadn't said anything, It was just, he was completely over his head. He didn't register, And I agree with you that it can have a big impact on people. So yes, unless they invite me to tell them something, I don't bother. And in fact, the thing I used to do was I used to have a couple of pictures on my laptop screen because I used to assess students, and I used to have to sort of sit with them for an hour and show them stuff on a laptop, some software that I was demonstrating to them. And so on my desktop, I think I had a little logo of NASA saying, never a straight answer, and some of the sort of strange anomalies that I'd come across in these various images. In fact, I'm writing a book about this right now, actually. And they never noticed it. They never comment. In fact, out of about 500 students that I saw, I had one student actually commented on this picture because they just weren't looking at what the picture was. They were just interested in the software that I was going to show them. So it's partly the context of the meeting that you have, but nobody knows. I do still work for the OU. I work for the OU part-time. I've been working for the OU part-time since 2002, but there is almost nobody, I don't think, in the OU, certainly not among the few people that I have occasional contact with. They don't know any of this. They don't know what I do. They don't know I have this sort of double life. They know nothing. And would be probably quite shocked if they found out, that I do.
Well, I know it can be really difficult when you first come across this information, because I was guilty myself of trying to bat total strangers over the head with it in the pub, and it never got anywhere because, like they say, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. But I've now realised that if people want to listen to what I say online, it's all out there. I've put hundreds of hours of it out there.
That's right.
Jason, between us, I've done stuff with Tom when I'm Enemy Within. It's all out there. So as far as battering strangers over the head with it, the only time anybody ever gets it both barrels with me is when they ask me to give to a charity, or particularly a cancer charity.
Yeah.
Then they get it.
That's the same with me. I'm pretty much in the same situation now. Yeah, exactly.
Andrew, I know you earlier on you mentioned flat Earth, right? And you obviously disparagingly mentioned flat Earth, but I'm going to give you a good flat Earth story. A kid who I see on a regular basis on a business level, and my dad does as well. Actually, he said to me. It comes to me one day, and he'd obviously been speaking to my dad, and I do talk flat Earth quite a lot because I find it fascinating, not because I'm necessarily a believer. It's just I just find the subject fascinating, and so he'd said to this young lad, and he's only a young lad, and he comes to me and he says to me in his Middlesbrough accent, he says, "I hear you think the Earth is flat," and I said, "Actually, I don't know, but I'm just asking questions about it." And he goes, "Oh, don't be stupid, man. The Earth's flat around." And he starts taking piss out of me, right? And he starts taking piss out of me, and I just sort of go, "Listen, mate, it's up to you what you think. I don't think anything. All I'm doing is I do question things about the flat Earth." And he'd about 3 or 4 days later, he comes back to me and he says, "I don't think the Earth is flat," but he says, "But that fucking 9/11 was dodgy, wasn't it?" He says, he starts talking, and he's going, "Oh man," and he's obviously just took a load of information in, He's just took a load of information in, and he's saying to me, he's trying to spurt it out to me. He's going, that building 2. I said, no, you mean building 7. Yeah, building 7. Yeah, oh, definitely I do. There was no plane in it. The plane didn't hit it. And he's going off like this, and I'm thinking to myself, it's like, like a giddy kid on Christmas Day who's just discovered something that they've got for Christmas. And that's what it was like. So I know you disparaged that Flat Earth, but when, in that situation, Flat Earth did us a favour.
I know what you're trying to say, and that it can lead you on to other topics. The problem is that that's the topic that the mainstream will use to make people avoid. And the very fact of actually discussing it as an issue, it's like, let me start a website or a forum to discuss how many eyes a human being has. Let's debate the number of eyes that a human being normally has, shall we? Let's have a belief about that. That's my problem with the flat Earth stuff and the way that it's working. It is a deliberate, premeditated psychological operation to destroy knowledge and destroy the intellect. That is what it's about. It's not just some casual discussion by people who are not sure whether NASA is lying or whether the Apollo hoax is fake or whether it's not. It's nothing to do with that. It is a psychological operation which is meant to damage or destroy the intellectual thought processes which happen in the human mind. That's what it is.
That's quite a strong opinion. I mean, for me, it's not destroyed.
No, it's not an opinion. I have been personally targeted with this operation. People have actually gone onto Facebook, changed their picture to my face, and posted flat Earth stuff.
Well, that's just stupid,
using my
isn't it?
picture.
That's just nuts. That's just bonkers. That's trolls. That's what
because they know. So going back to an earlier question,
have you been
that
targeted?
We had about whether I've been targeted.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been targeted in terms of threatening to burn my house down or kill my family or anything horrible like that. But I have been targeted with that specific operation. I'll definitely say that, and I kind of that's sort of off the radar slightly, but that's what it's for. That's how I know it's a premeditated, planned operation. It's not just a sort of casual set of debates that are sprung up because people are questioning everything. Yes, questioning is one thing. Knowing is the opposite of questioning. Knowing is the result of having a question answered. Right? Now, having knowledge taken away from you so that a question arises where knowledge once was, that's actually the antithesis of what we're supposed to be doing. All right? So once you know something, you've got it, you own it. It's not a belief anymore. You don't need to ask questions about that. You can come up with different questions. You can move on. You can grow spiritually.
But to know something, you have to see it with your own eyes, don't you? You have to see it. So the only people...
No. You can know it. You can see it with your own eyes. You can see it through understanding the way geometry works. You can see it by taking a 120-kilometre walk, and you can see it by having a 120-kilometre walk with sticks and then measuring angles, which is what Eratosthenes did in ancient Greece 6,000 years ago. That knowledge was established before the internet, before space travel, before photography. That knowledge was established. The CIA, whoever it was, are now setting out to see if they can destroy that knowledge, right? That's what it's about. It's actually the opposite of what we're doing, which is trying to give knowledge, encourage knowledge. The flat Earth stuff is about taking away knowledge and destroying it because you're encouraged to debate something that you do not need to debate. It's very important that you understand that, and that's what it's about. And it's not an opinion. You can establish that from looking at everything that's going on right now.
Wow. I didn't anticipate such a strong response to it. It was just a nothing question.
That's why it's very strong. Is it's like, if we're talking about building a house, I'm talking about a foundation. You would not say, oh, this house here, right? Oh, we don't need a foundation. There's a foundation here. Let's just take that out and then watch the house fall down. That's the analogy that I'm trying to draw here. And I'm talking about knowledge. I'm talking about the the difference between knowledge and belief, and growing in your knowledge of the world and the universe. And the flat Earth thing is a fundamental part of taking those bricks out of the foundation of your knowledge, so that basically we've called it a shake and bake for your brain. People don't know up from down, literally. You know, they start off, they have a normal life, they start looking at whatever, moon landings, cancer, whatever it is, then they find flat Earth, and they have a shake and bake brain. You know,
I can absolutely verify that, Andrew. I got targeted by someone. You talk about the shake and bake brain. It was someone who I'd co-hosted radio shows with. I
think we talked about that, didn't we? Actually,
yeah. Well,
he wrote to me as well.
Yes, you had dealings with him as well, but he called me and all the people I was associated with some very nasty names because I wouldn't let him take over our radio station to do an interview with a flat earther.
Yep. Because they needed to spread that psychological operation, and it's been massive. It's been huge. It's been enormous. You know, I actually had to put a thing on my contact page because I was getting so many time-wasting messages about it. And this guy that you mentioned, he admitted he admitted he'd read my message and ignored it deliberately, so that he could write to me, and he pretended that he hadn't read it. But then he later sort of admitted that he actually had, and he wrote to me anyway, which was against the request of what I'd said in the message.
Yeah.
Well, you know, simple enough thing.
Let's get off at flat Earth, shall we? Because it's obviously not something that you're that you're averse to, not adverse.
Well, it's not. I'm not averse to it. I am averse to it, obviously, but what I mean is, it's very important that people understand what is being going on. It's actually an infection. It's a knowledge infection, if you will, or a knowledge disease that is being encouraged and promoted, and people that are, you know, talking about it and doing websites about it, you know, they're actually harming things. They're poisoning the well of knowledge. Yeah. That's what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've gone over, but if you've got, I'd just like to get 5 or 10 minutes, just your opinion. There's been a lot of talk of directed energy weapons with these fires that have been happening in California, and I know there's been footage of trees that have been on fire on the inside. So I just wanted to get, you know, your take on that. Just
sure.
If you've got time, of course.
Absolutely. Well, actually, it's interesting, Jason, that you mentioned that, because the topic that we were just talking about and this one are related, right? Because yes, I became a little bit concerned about these wildfires in California. They started in October. You know, these sort of random forest fires that burnt down several communities. Santa Rosa being one was very badly hit, and I think maybe even several hundred, maybe even 1,000 more properties were destroyed. And we saw what looked like anomalous damage, you know, cars apparently being toasted like they were on 9/11, buildings disappearing like they did on 9/11, you know, and all of this stuff. The reports of people seeing energy beams setting the trees on fire or something at night or something. But Dr. Judy Wood and myself, we started getting emails about this. So she looked into it a bit, and we watched a couple of these videos that were doing the rounds, and found out that some of the stuff was sort of slightly weird, but other stuff wasn't. Like they were claiming that a plastic bin wasn't melted, you know, when this fire happened. But actually, if you watch the video carefully, yes, there was one bin that wasn't melted. But if you wait until the video went a bit further down the street, there was a bin that was melted, you know. And then there were other pictures that were put out, and I've seen this a couple of times. There was a picture of a burnt car that was put out, posted on various blogs. And when I looked at that picture, I found it in an article from 2015. It wasn't from 2016, it was from 2015. It wasn't from these California fires. And so after getting these messages for a couple of weeks saying, no, it was directed energy weapons, we decided to do a conversation about it, Dr. Wood and myself, and I posted it on my YouTube channel, and I just put a caption thing up on it. And we basically said, look, we don't really know what's going on with these fires. We're not sure, but we don't think it was directed energy weapons in the same way it was on 9/11. We don't think that. And we gave some reasons why we didn't think that. And Dr. Judy said she thought it was a bit stupid that people would be making the assumption that it was the same sort of energy weapon or whatever, and it was just a repeat of 9/11. No, because people weren't being levitated. Buildings didn't turn to dust. Yes, there were some burnt cars, but some of them were definitely ordinary car fires, and you could see that if you look carefully enough. And then I had people sending me hate mail after I posted this video, and I put some of this, I ended up having to write an article about it. And that video where we said that this is probably not what was done on 9/11, not the same as what was done on 9/11. People were, that's the only YouTube video that I put on my channel that's had more dislikes than likes. You know?
Wow, it just shows you that people get married to their theory and whatever the first thing that comes into their head or something that they follow or something. People get married to it, don't they? And it's very difficult for people to move away from that or to even just. Right. It's difficult for people. They think, "Oh, case solved. It's directed energy weapons."
It's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. End of. We know the government's not telling the truth. That's all we need to know. And we basically pointed out that no, that you shouldn't have that approach. If you want to know the truth, you need to go to the scene, you need to talk to people, you need to look at the physical evidence, you need to get pictures. Dr. Judy Wood did her investigation for at least 3 years. I think it was 3 years before she posted anything on the internet. 3 years of investigation. People did 2 minutes of investigation on the California wildfires. Well, maybe not 2 minutes. Let's say a day, 1 day, 24, 48 hours, and they were posting YouTube videos and saying it was directed energy weapons. You know, and then they criticise us for saying that you need to spend more time and more investigation doing that. And then there's one guy that wrote to me. Guess what? He said that I'd criticised these two people. One was called a Planet Truth or something, and one was somebody else. And these weren't real people. I'd criticised YouTube channels that I hadn't even mentioned because I didn't know they existed. But both those YouTube channels, guess what they promote? Flat Earth. That's what they promote. Wow. So that's when I knew the talk of the California wildfires. Now, I don't know exactly what happened there. I don't claim to know. I think something dodgy went off. I said that in the conversation with Dr. Wood. I don't think the whole truth has been told about them. There's some weird-looking stuff. But I basically said, look, I'm not going to investigate this. You know, I'm not going to fly out to California to investigate this. Somebody wants to give me, £5,000, pay me for 3 months' work, and me to go and do an investigation, then I'll go and do it. But I'm not just going to comment for people who want me to comment on a YouTube channel because they think I should, because I've talked about 9/11. No, I comment on what I want to comment on. You know, I'm just a private researcher that does things by invitation. I'm not going to respond to these people. And we think that this was a direct attempt to associate the directed energy weapon concept with the California wildfires so it can be debunked later by somebody. That was what we think it was.
And finally, and I'm very sorry for keeping you longer than we anticipated.
No problem at all.
But my final question: Did you hear or read about the link? In fact, it might not be my final question. I think I've got another one that just comes to my head. But was there any link to smart meters made when you were looking at it?
I didn't investigate it that much. The only thing that did come up, and we did mention it in the conversation, or I mentioned it in the article, was Agenda 21. And I think there may be a link to that in that a lot of the areas that were burned down were earmarked for Agenda 21 type rezoning, I think they were calling it, because they wanted to take ownership of the land. Whether those houses had been fitted with smart meters, don't know. So I don't know is my honest answer to that question.
I think I saw something that claimed anyway that they were that all the houses that had burnt down had got smart meters in, and the ones that didn't have smart meters in. But
sorry, just to add, let's just think about that. You know, without going into a lot of detail, but so let's say this person made that claim. So how did they establish that? Did they find a smart meter database and then look at, you know, where those smart meters, is that even public information? No. Is there a database which shows that smart meters have been fitted in certain houses? Did they show the utility company emails that they got or spreadsheets or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. These are just claims that I just saw.
Exactly.
I just saw. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us tonight, coming on here. One last question. I just had it in my head, and I've not seen. Oh, have you seen the story of the guy that came forward as a whistleblower, said that he'd done, and this is going right back to the very beginning of the show, that he'd done autopsies on 3,000 different species of extraterrestrials.
No,
And,
I'm not aware of that.
He came to do an interview, and then suddenly was struck down with some sort of virus, and almost died, but he's okay, and I think he's still going to go ahead and do an interview. I don't know if you've seen that. If not,
no, I haven't seen that at all.
Right. Well, it's a story that I came across today when I was researching, obviously, because
okay.
Because we got you coming on tonight, and I knew that this is what we were going to talk about. Andy, have you got anything to add to the end of this? Tag on to this, Andy.
No, mate.
Andy.
I just wanted to say that I'd seen that story, and it just didn't sit right with me somehow.
Yeah.
Just a little bit too fantastical. But hey, maybe, I know there is strange stuff out there we don't know about, but how strange, I don't know.
I'll check it out anyway and see what it looks like. It sounds quite interesting anyway, at least.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's entertainment, and it's news is entertainment these
Can
days.
be, unfortunately, yes.
It's not really topical or factual in any way. Well, thank you very much, Andrew Johnson, for coming on Raconteurs News yet again. Another time. I think it's your third time, actually. So thanks very much. And we must organise the nostalgia. Perhaps we'll leave it to an hour or something, but we'll do the nostalgia thing from the early days of the 9/11 Truth Movement, because I know that there's a lot of things that we probably were both either involved in or we were aware of at that time, and there are people around these days who were perhaps not of the age to be reading that sort of things on forums. I still think forums were tons better, and I think we've purposefully been trapped in social media. Everything's just gone on social media, and I think we've purposely been put in there and then said, right, you can't do this, nobody can do that. Whereas on forums, everybody saw what everybody posted, and there were no, unless you were banned from it, of course, or it was just completely different. I think a lot better as well, and I hate to be harking back to the good old days in this century, but it's definitely. What are we now, about 13, 14 years on? I think we've gone backwards. I think the internet's gone backwards. I think we need to rethink it. I think it needs to be. I think we perhaps need to direct our energy to different areas rather than social media. But anyway, thank you very much, Andrew Johnson. Thank you to my friend Andy Young. Great to have you back. It's been wonderful this evening. Next week on Monday, we've got the King and Queen of the Sovereign State of Good Hope. They'll be joining me. We'll be having a chat with them. I'm going to have a chat with them over the weekend. I've just had an email with all the protocols that I need to do. I'm not going to stick to any of them. I'm just going to call them Kingy and Queenie. So, listen, thank you very much for listening. I need a new beginning. So if anybody's got an idea for a new beginning, put it in the chat room. I need a new beginning. I'm sick of this world's not. This world don't belong to everyone, it belongs to Ade Hardy. I'm sick of all that. So if anyone's got any suggestions, just stick them in chat room, and I'll pick the one that makes me giggle the most. But thank you, Andrew Johnson.
Thank you.
And
if I can just say,
Young.
I like the way you did it last week, live from Yorkshire.
Hey, live from Yorkshire, yeah. Here we are, live from Yorkshire, signing off. Thank you very much for listening. Go to raconteursnews.com. You can sign up there so that you've got a regular name in the chat room and everything. Go checktheevidence.com. That's the one, isn't it?
That's it.
Checktheevidence.com. That's Andrew's website. Raconteursnews.com. Spreaker.com. And we'll see you on Monday. Thanks for listening.
Astronaut.